Government videotape recreates the crash of TWA Flight 800. The explosion, the last seconds of the crippled flight, and the plunge into the Atlantic. This morning, we examined step by step the official version of what happened on board that doomed 747. And good morning, America. I'm Lisa McCree. It is Wednesday, November 19th.
The investigation into the crash of TWA Flight 800 is now the search for a mechanical flaw. 16 months after the mid-air explosion, the FBI has ended its criminal investigation. Here's ABC's Lisa Stark.
The FBI spent at least $14 million and went to extraordinary lengths to rule out a bomb or missile, from examining 1 million pieces of the plane to interviewing 7,000 people. The man heading the probe brushed aside criticism that the FBI had hung in long after it seemed clear there was no criminal cause of the tragedy.
I mean, we've got 230 people that died here. We've got whole families, children. We have to look at every dark crack and crevice of this investigation. We did the right thing.
To help lay to rest the missile theory, the FBI turned to the CIA, which released this animation to explain what the eyewitnesses saw.
The eyewitnesses did not see a missile.
The CIA determined the witnesses saw the plane after the initial explosion, as it was breaking apart, ultimately falling toward the water, with a massive explosion as the left wing tore off. The tape was difficult viewing for some of the family members of those who died. Emotional, too, for James KALLSTROM, who is ending the most challenging investigation of his career.
I think we're satisfied that we did a good job, that we left no stone unturned. We didn't take the easy way out.
And for the families now and the traveling public, the focus turns entirely to the National Transportation Safety Board, which is searching for a mechanical cause to this crash. The board has already spent $30 million trying to figure out what went wrong. Their investigation continues. Kevin?
Lisa, thank you very much. And that is your news at 9 minutes past.
Either a naval vessel, naval plane, Air Force plane, mistakenly shot this plane out of the sky.
We looked at that. We looked behind that. We verified all the ordnance. We interviewed the crews. I think the most compelling reason would be that this plane would be totally destroyed with a missile from an Aegis cruiser.
You actually took scrapped pieces of other 747s, just like this plane behind us, to the desert in the southwest, and you fired missiles at that piece of aircraft. Why'd you do that?
Well, you know, when this happened, we did not have a forensic database of what that damage looks like from a missile.
So you didn't know what would happen if a missile hit the side of a 747?
Well, we know what a high explosive warhead does to metal. We know what bombs do, because things have been bombed, but we didn't have a database. In fact, there was not one in the world that really looked from a scientific forensic standpoint of what a missile, an airburst, or a penetration of a missile that's a dud actually does to the metal. So we created our own with the help of DOD.
Can you just go 3 feet with me a little closer to the plane? Because when you look at this plane, there are so many tears, there are so many holes. You people and your investigators are probably familiar with every one of those holes. Isn't there one piece, though, Jim, of missing fuselage, one tear, one hole, that still worries you?
You know, that's why we waited till this mock-up was built. We wanted to feel comfortable that we could see all this in 3 dimensions, that we could actually put a string between one hole and see if it went out the other side, or did it actually go down to the center fuel tank. You know, that was the key element for us, that if you laid all this out on the floor and looked at the holes and the tears, it really doesn't give you the dimension it does when it's sitting there, so you can look at everything in perspective. We feel very confident that none of that happened.
I talked about eyewitnesses. 244 people said they saw something on the night of July 17th, 1996. You turned to the CIA to create a videotape to try to explain what those people saw. Does that tape, after you've watched it now, explain away all of their questions?
Well, it probably won't. I mean, there'll always be some people, probably some of the witnesses this morning are saying, well, I don't agree with this, but let me tell you, we had so much science in that tape. We had so many known things. We had the black boxes. We had the radars from 12 radar sites. We had the satellite overhead that absolutely told us when the big explosion was. We had GPS of the witnesses, so we knew where they were standing. We had the azimuths of where they were looking. There wasn't many things left in the formula there that we had to fill in that were unknown.
But do you think, though, that based on everything the eyewitnesses told you, they can all be justified or explained away in that tape?
Well, let me say this. I think all the eyewitnesses, 244 eyewitnesses, we feel totally confident, saw events after that tragic center fuel tank right there blew up.
You know, I'm sure you've read the papers this morning. Some of the eyewitnesses are not satisfied with your conclusions. A couple of family members are not satisfied. Representative TWA said he's disappointed that you're closing your investigation. What do you say to those people?
Well, you can't please all the people. I mean, we did the best we can. We did a comprehensive, total, redundant investigation. We pushed way past what would normally happen. We looked at all this stuff multiple times. We brought in fresh eyes. We brought in new teams. We looked at it over and over again. We put every possible theory on the board.
Of course, the job now is for the NTSB, and Jim Hall is the chairman of the NTSB, and they will now continue their investigation. Mr. Hall, good morning to you.
Matt. Morning.
We're looking at right here.
This is the center fuel tank, yes.
And I should also explain, this is opened, but your people have opened this. Isn't that correct? The explosion didn't bring this out in this direction.
That's correct.
So what have you seen by looking in the center fuel tank that gives you some sort of clue?
Well, our investigators, of course, and the FBI investigators have been looking at every piece of metal that you see here. First, of course, to eliminate the possibility of a bomb and missile, and then to look at the forensics within this tank and what the metal will tell us in regard to where the explosion might have, the ignition source might have possibly come.
Let me turn you back around, because for the last year and a half, Mr. Hall, we've been hearing people say that 747s simply don't explode and fall from the sky. This one did. But until you know why it did, why not ground other 747s? This plane was 25 years old. In total, there's something like 1,000 747s flying in the world today. Why not ground them until you're sure why this one went down?
Well, we have made some recommendations to the FAA in regard to what we think should be done in regard to the 747 center fuel tank and operations. While there has been some, those have not been embraced by the industry, there have been steps taken by the industry and the FAA to look at all the fuel systems around all of the commercial aircraft fleet to ensure its safety while this investigation is underway.
I mentioned to Jim KALLSTROM a second ago the CIA tape that was created for this. And after you've seen that now, is there any way, Mr. Hall, that you can give us a better idea of what exactly it must have been like on that plane during the last few seconds of flight? Do you have a better idea based on that tape?
Well, I think that tape the purpose of that tape was to demonstrate what the eyewitnesses saw that evening. And I think it did an excellent job on that, as I think the FBI has done an outstanding job on their investigation of this matter.
You have seen the tape. You actually had the tape made for you. You had a friend on that flight, Jim, Janet Christopher, who's the wife of an FBI agent. How difficult, as a professional, was it for you to watch that tape knowing that you had a friend on board that plane?
It's still difficult, even though it's animated. It's still difficult to see that and know that many people lost their lives.
And I would imagine when you look at this plane and the reconstruction of this aircraft, it's impossible, I would imagine, to look at this plane and not think about the human loss.
Absolutely.
You have spent a year and a half of your life, obviously, dealing with this subject, as the folks at the NTSB have, and so many other people. In emotional tolls, in a personal toll, what toll has it taken on you?
Well, it is emotional, but we have a wonderful team. Some of the people are standing around here today, and Jim and I had the honor of leading them. And when you have people that you can rely on, and they all pull together for a cause, it gives you some inspiration. But there's always forces in our life that get us through these things. These forces in our life that get us through these things. In my case, my wife and my family, my support apparatus. And I'm sure the spouses of everyone involved in this investigation, I want to mention the spouses and the children that allow all of us to work these hours and to be away from home and miss holidays. They're the unsung heroes in investigations like this.
You said during your press conference yesterday that although you're closing the investigation on the criminal side, it's not over in the sense that if something does turn up, you fire this thing right back up again.
Right.
What are you hoping might turn up? Who would you look to find some piece of evidence?
Well, we're not actually hoping something turns up now. We don't know if it will. We're a team, so if something in all the science that he has now, and it's voluminous and it's the best in the world, moving ahead on these theories. If they come up with something that we didn't know or we didn't see, or some new piece of evidence comes up from some clam rigger out on the island, I mean, we're going to look at that. If someone calls us today, you know, from somewhere in the world and says, hey, what about this? You know, we'll assess that and we'll take whatever action is necessary.
Why don't we end this by saying, is there something you'd like to say to the family members of the people who died aboard this 747 back in July of 1996?
I think what I've always said, that I don't know if I could do what they've done. I think they've had tremendous grace. They've been very supportive of us. They've given us strength, both of us and everyone on this team, to do what we've done. It's an extremely emotional experience to be with them, to bond with them. They've galvanized us to do the best job we ever can. I mean, we always tried to do that. But when you see this up front, when you walk into the Ramada Inn and see 1,000 people that just lost somebody, a child or a mother or a father, or in the case of Joe Lichner, I don't know how he did it. He's a strong guy. I wish I could be half the man he was.
Jim Hall, Jim KALLSTROM, thanks both.